I feel great. What a week. What a week for slop, folks. A special, special, special week of slop that we have here. The Dallas Mavericks are just doing miracles on all of us. Thank you to Nico Harrison, who I was just laughing at because I read an article that said he might not be long term with the Dallas Mavericks, which would explain all of this stuff that has happened in the last few days. He is pushing in the chips to make the greatest first round exit we've ever seen, possibly play an exit we've ever seen. And our Philadelphia 76ers might be the beneficiary of some of this. So let's talk about it real quick, because I'm looking at this trade. First off, my immediate thought when I saw that we traded Caleb Martin to the Dallas Mavericks was, did we get Quintin Grimes back? Because he's someone who's about to get paid. Dallas is obviously trying to avoid taking on long-term salary. They just made a trade to get under the luxury tax. Apparently this puts them back in the luxury tax, but I'm sure they'll get out of that in the next few days, because Caleb makes more money this year, but he is locked up on a shorter term contract. Smaller money short-term contract. He's locked up for at least the next 2 years after this one, possibly 3. Now, look, from Dallas's perspective, if they think they're making the playoffs, Caleb's obviously more of a proven playoff player than Quintin Grimes has been. I personally have liked Quintin Grimes for a while. He was someone, going back to his days when he was on the Knicks, I thought he was someone that would fit really well on the Sixers, especially with Tyrese Maxey. Super athletic, someone who can really shoot, puts up a ton of threes, decent point of attack defender, and obviously is now going to be the third guard along with Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain. I think he can play with both of them. I think that is the ideal kind of third guard that you want to have next to either of those guys. Just someone who will take on the harder assignments on defense in the backcourt, someone who will put up a ton of shots, and someone who can get to the basket and finish. He's had a really good year this year. He had stretches where he looked amazing for the Mavericks. I did not think they were going to trade him, but because of the fact that they probably are not going to, there's probably a number that him and his agent want, which is why, by the way, he's been traded 3 times already, that teams have not wanted to pay him. Well, that is a little bit of a concern. Just, he transferred in college after 1 year, and this was before the NIL stuff. And then he's been traded 3 times in the NBA. That's the only thing that I'm a little bit concerned about. I don't know. I guess I just have a different opinion on Caleb Martin than most Sixers fans. I hated the Caleb Martin experience. Look, he tries really hard. He is definitely someone who obviously has proven himself at times in the playoffs with the Miami Heat. I thought it was a mostly miserable experience to watch him play for the Sixers. Now, has this year been a disaster with Joel being out and Paul George being in another lineup? Yes, it's not all Caleb Martin's fault, obviously. But the thing that scared me the most about Caleb was the fact that he has been an insanely streaky shooter, to the point where before December, the first 2 months of the season, I thought his shot was broken. I thought that he made a ton of really easy mistakes that just he constantly would go bozo mode, foot on the line on threes, bad turnovers, would get lost off the ball on defense a ton. And he was just someone that didn't really make sense for the Sixers in their current iteration. Now, is Quintin Grimes the highest IQ player in the NBA? No, but also, like, the Sixers are not in a mode where they're trying to win this season. I think it's pretty obvious that this is more of a long-term bet on Quintin Grimes, who's 24 years old, as opposed to Caleb, who's in his late 20s now, almost 30. And they clearly have realized they need shooting on this team. They need athleticism. They need, as Chiodo posted, they needed a zoomer guard, which is literally the only time that Daryl Morey has acquired. I think it's the first time that he's acquired a zoomer guard since D'Anthony Melton. So and just by the way, once again, not Caleb Martin's fault that the Sixers are terrible this year. He obviously did not come here thinking they were going to be this bad. He came here thinking they were going to be a contending team. Obviously, that's going to hurt his analytics, but his analytics look completely terrible across the board. He was bottom 50 in LeBron this season. His EPM was awful. His BPM was terrible. And we know Daryl Morey is an analytics guy. Like, if your analytics are that bad, Daryl Morey's probably going to look to move you, especially when the skill set is a little bit redundant with Kelly Oubre. This move opens up some money in terms of it gets them under the first apron, so they can technically sign guys who are on buyouts now. So like if Lonzo gets bought out, they could have interest in him. If Bruce Brown gets bought out, they could have interest in him. Ben Simmons coming home. So they could possibly do that if they move off a little bit more money just to bring in those guys, which I think would be as easy as like a Eric Gordon or Reggie Jackson salary dump, which is definitely possible. I think that Quintin Grimes will probably start for us right away. He'll probably play 25 minutes a game. He was playing around 20 minutes a game in Dallas. Had some really nice moments this year. And like I said, I've always liked Quintin Grimes. I've thought that he kind of got, it was a weird thing with him in New York where they valued him way too high when they first got him, to the point where they weren't even willing to move him in the Donovan Mitchell trade. Then they sold very low on him. They got Alec Burks and Bojan back for him at last deadline. Obviously, Detroit did not want to pay him, and they had a new front office come in. So they decided to move on from him. And then the Mavericks didn't want to pay him. So if he proves in the next 2.5 months or 2 months, however long the Sixers have in their season, whether they make the playoffs or not, if he proves to be a rotation caliber player at 24 years old that can sign for a decent, contract this offseason, I love it for the Sixers. Now, there's always the risk that some team, maybe the Nets just throw a huge bag at him. They're like, here's $18 million a year, and the Sixers don't match it. I mean, I think that this was more about getting off of the Caleb Martin contract, which is insane to say in February about, like, I'm not saying that they don't want to bring back Grimes, but I think they would be fine if something like that happened. It's insane to say that about Caleb Martin because I had such high expectations for Caleb Martin. We only signed him for $7-8 million a year, but exactly 6 months ago, we were saying, why would you sign this if you're Caleb Martin? And I think we learned why this year. Like, obviously, the shot is looked weird. Outside of Miami, he hasn't really proven to be that great. He's had moments with the Sixers. Obviously, he still kills the Celtics like he did on Christmas. I'm sure they're happy to have him out of the Eastern Conference. But I can understand why guys lock up money like this when they're not legit starting level players. And I think Caleb is a good bench wing. Like, I think he's like a solid seventh man. And I overrated him. Now, maybe I'm overrating Quintin Grimes right now too. But I at least like the idea that they're trying to get younger, the idea that they're trying to have a more forward-looking move and see if this can work out and have someone that they can hopefully add to their core. That brings a lot of things that this team is missing right now. Like, I mean, you've seen over the last week or two when Eric Gordon is actually making shots that this team can look functional in a way that they have not looked really the whole season. Outside of that brief stretch when Joel Embiid was a little bit healthy. So I'm happy with the trade. Like, I actually think that if you look at the numbers, the amount of threes that Quintin Grimes puts up and the efficiency that he makes them on, if you look at the fact that his analytics have been slowly creeping up ever since his little weird year last year, and Caleb Martin's are trending down, and that this trade just makes sense for the Sixers. I think that this also adds a component of they save a little bit of money in terms going into next year, and if they save money going into next year, they are more likely to bring back Yabusele on a MLE style deal. So mid-level exception is a possibility. They at least have a pathway to getting to that mid-level exception to bring back Yabu. I would imagine this means that Yabu is starting now for the team. So the starters until Joel gets healthy, at least. Yabu will probably be starting at the 5 still. It's possible he slides over to the 4 when Joel's back. And then you have a starting lineup of Maxey, Grimes, Kelly Oubre, Yabu, and Embiid. And then Paul George is sent to Siberia. But yeah, there you go. Okay, rival teams continue to believe Gershon Yabusele could be moved to a contending team for the right price. So here's the thing. It's possible that they could still trade Yabu. I would be surprised if they trade Yabu for anything less than like a lot of seconds or like a heavily protected first, like or one of those fake firsts like the Suns just got. You know what I mean? Like the 28th pick in the draft or whatever. I would like to, if it's a possibility, we can get a pathway to keeping Yabu. I would like it. He's one of the few players in the NBA that and on the Sixers that gives me joy. I love watching Yabu play. During this horrible season, it's basically been him, Maxey, and McCain, and then KJ when he was healthy have been the lone bright spots. I would just like to like if the Sixers aren't going to contend, just give me fun basketball. Like don't don't make me watch like washed up guys. Don't make me watch guys in their 30s. Don't make me watch guys who have fucking knee and back problems. Like give me a healthy roster with young talent with upside. And like I know Yabu's like 29. But I don't know. He's just been a joy to watch this year in a really miserable Sixers season. I would imagine that this means they're converting Justin Edwards. So I would say that they'll probably bring him in once they do either another salary dump or another trade. They'll probably sign Justin Edwards for the rest of the season. And give him the Ricky Council scam contract where it's like 3 years, all non-guaranteed. But Edwards has shown me something in these few weeks that he's been playing in the rotation. And yeah, I don't know. Like once again, I like this move for the Sixers. I I kind of get it for the Mavericks. Like I said to Slightly Biased, as you can see, we were DMing. He's going to come on the podcast tomorrow to talk about the Mavericks end of the Luka trade, and I'm sure we'll talk about this as well. But I kind of get it from the Mavericks only if you buy the Adelson conspiracy theory that I threw out there, that they know that everything's done. It's over. The country's going under. We're going to have a civil war. They're probably pushing to nuke Iran, all of that stuff right now. And if that is the case, and we get World War III, then getting Caleb Martin and trying to make a playoff push this year might make more sense for them because it's all over. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I like the Sixers taking a longer term look. Obviously, I do want to qualify that I think that he also like Quintin Grimes also was a streaky player. Like he was amazing the first 2 months of the season and has kind of fell off recently. I'm not saying that either of these guys are perfect players, but I like the fact that he is younger, someone who I think fits better with the guards. And once again, like it's amazing to me that Daryl Morey, the GM who kind of founded and I wouldn't even say founded, he at least somewhat revolutionized the NBA with the amount of 3-point shooting that goes on nowadays with like the Rockets, which led to, the Warriors and then eventually the Celtics and all that shit. It's amazing to me that he devalued 3-point shooting so much that he thought that he could get away with starting the Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre duo. And now I think the Quintin Grimes signing obviously shows you that he's learning from that mistake, that we need to have 3-point shooting. He was trying to zag, obviously, but the 3-point shooting is something that this team has lacked most of the season. More recently, that like I said, they've been shooting way above their head. But yeah, I would say that I feel good about this.